All right. Let me make sure. There we go. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, you can post them. It should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen like a phone. If you're on a larger screen like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. Also want to mention that you can ask your questions at any time, 24/7. You do not have to wait for the live office hours to ask your question. You are welcome to, but you don't have to. You can ask your question at any time, and it will be answered during the next live office hours. You also don't have to be present to see the answer to your question, although I recommend that you do attend the live office hours in case you have a follow-up question or in case your question wasn't clear and I need some clarification. So, but if you're busy, you're out playing golf or whatever it is, no worries. You can see the answer to your question after the office hours is over by going to the office hours archive. You can get to that archive by clicking the green button below the video. That will take you to the office hours archive where it says view the office hours archive here. Select that. That will take you to it, and you can see the answer to your question there. All right. So let's see here. Let me refresh this. Make sure we got the latest and greatest questions in here. All right. So it doesn't look like we have any new questions as of right now. Hopefully we can get some here in a minute. If not, no big deal. We can try to come up with some stuff to talk about. Bear with me here. We're trying to get the office hours notification set back up. And yeah, it doesn't look like they're working. I signed up for them and I didn't get it. So bear with me here. Okay. So I can talk about a lesson that I just did. Right before office hours started, I did an online lesson that I needed to do, and it was a new student actually struggling with driver. Actually has a pretty good looking swing. Everything looks pretty good. It's just that his club face is pretty open. So his wrist angles, they're getting kind of cupped, which a cupped wrist isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just about how the grip that you pair with it. So there's lots of great players out there that have cupped wrists throughout their swing. It's not necessarily a swing fault. If you're wanting to have a weak grip or even a neutral grip, typically a cupped wrist isn't going to work very well just because it's just going to get the face too open. And then you're going to have to really do something to get the club face square enough in the downswing. Now, if you're able to do that, that's great. If you have great timing with it, that's great. But it's just not something that we see a lot of the best players do. Typically, when I look at the best players, they're going to have matchups for the grip and the wrist angles that they have. So this is a great subject. So let's talk about this. So generally what I've seen is players that have a weak grip, and a weak grip meaning basically the thumbs are going right down the top of the shaft. The back of my lead hand's pointing straight toward the target. The palm of my trail hand pointing straight toward the target. That would be what I would consider a weak grip. This is the grip that I see a lot of recreational golfers have. And the reason why, this is why I believe the reason why they have it is because it's intuitive. It's kind of the most intuitive grip to have. Because in our setup here, we all like symmetry, right? So if I set up here and I have symmetry, and I feel like I have everything straight out in front of me like this, like generally, most people are just going to have a weak grip just because that's just what feels the most normal to them. To have the club right in front of their body like this, I mean, that's just what feels the most comfortable. The problem with this is that most people tend to leave the face open. And I honestly think this is probably the biggest reason why a lot of people slice the ball. It's just because they're setting up with a grip that doesn't match the swing that they're making. And then that leaves the club face open, which makes the ball slice. When the face is too open, the ball will slice. So when I see there's lots and lots of high level players that have weak grips, I'll name a bunch of them. We got Colin Morikawa, we got Victor Hovland, we've got Jon Rahm, right? Those are kind of like the three, I would say, big dogs up there that have weak grips and in our elite players. Well, what do they do in their swing that allows them to have this weak grip that recreational golfers don't have? And what they do is they bow their wrist, right? So if you look at every single one of those guys I just mentioned, Jon Rahm, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, they all look like this at the top, and they all look like this at impact, and with their wrists. And the reason why that is that this move right here, that closes the club face. See what that does to the club face? That closes it. So that allows them to have that weak grip because they're making up for that by bowing the wrist to square up the face. If you have a weak grip and you don't bow the wrist, the face is just going to tend to be open, or you may be coming into contact and really trying to release the club very early, which isn't a big deal with the driver so much, but it is a bigger deal with the irons. If you release the club too early, you're going to lose some compression with the irons. And you're also going to, if you release it, if you're kind of extreme with it, where you have basically no shaft lean or even backward shaft lean, you're going to really struggle with chunks, typically thins. So we want to have some shaft lean. If we have some shaft lean, that's okay. So I don't want you to take this and say, hey, I have a weak grip, I got to start bowing my wrist. You don't have to do that. In fact, that's actually not what I recommend. Now, if you try that and that comes very intuitively to you and it's easy and you're getting everything you want out of it, that's awesome. That's just not typically what I see, because bowing the wrist is not usually a very intuitive thing. And again, this is just my opinion, but I believe it is because it doesn't feel very powerful to most people. So a lot of the power that we can generate, or the club head speed that we can generate, is directly tied to how much force we can put into this handle, right? So think about it this way. Imagine that this didn't have the grip on there, and then I took Vaseline and I put it on there. How fast do you think you're going to be able to swing that club? Not very fast, right? Because you're just not going to be able to hold on to it because it's going to be flying out of your hands. Well, that's what's happening in the golf swing. When you swing this club, there is a force going out in that direction away from you that is wanting to pull this club out of your hands. And if you can't put force into the handle to be able to hold on to it, you won't be able to swing this fast, right? Because otherwise it's just going to fly out of your hands. And intuitively, you're just not going to do that. So going back to the bowed wrist thing, if I ask you right now to clench a fist in your left hand and clench it as hard as you possibly can, what are you going to do? You're going to have a wrist angle that probably looks like that. That's pretty flat, pretty neutral, because that's where you're able to put the most force in your hand. If I said, oh, hey, I want you to do that with your wrist, and now make a wrist or make a fist and clench it as hard as you can, you're going to feel how you're really not going to be able to put as much, you're not going to feel as much tightness in that hand when you do that, because I don't know what it is, specifically, but I know that when I do it, I can't put as much, I can't tighten up my fist quite as much. And then if I cut my wrist, I don't really feel like that plays any role. But if I bow it, I can really feel like I can feel the more I bow it, the more my hand kind of loosens up. So I think that's a big reason why we see a lot of people tend to not bow their wrist, because it's just not a powerful, intuitive thing. So if it is a powerful, intuitive thing for you to do, then by all means do it. But if it isn't, then I would probably recommend strengthening your grip. We can talk about that here in a second. So you might be thinking now, well, why do those guys do it, right? Well, I don't know this for a fact. I mean, I've never talked to any of these guys personally or know any of the inner workings of what they've trained up to this point or anything like that. But I would venture to say that's probably not a natural thing for them to do in the first place. It might have been, but I venture to say it probably wasn't a very natural thing for them to do, and they had to train it. Well, why wouldn't you just have a stronger grip then and not have to train this? Well, the reason is because you get benefits from bowing your wrist. There's some benefits to it. There's some pros and there's some cons. The cons are that generally you're not going to be able to put as much force in the handle, and you may not be able to create as much speed. If you have a ton of speed already, it may not be that big of a deal. All those guys that I mentioned, John Rahm's very, very powerful player. Even with a shorter swing, he's a powerful player, right? Shorter swing than most, not necessarily a short swing, but a shorter swing than most. He's a more powerful player than your average tour player. I think Victor Hovland, I think he's probably around the average. He's not super long. He's probably a little around the average. And I think Victor Hovland's a little above average. So I think John Rahm is swinging somewhere in the 120 range. And Victor Hovland's probably swinging somewhere in the 117 to 118 range. Now, a lot of these guys are always getting faster. Especially Victor Hovland and Morikawa could have been. It's possible he could be working on speed stuff and getting faster because he's not as fast as a lot of the players that he is up there with in the world rankings, like Rory and Scotty Scheffler. He's not as fast as them. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's working on some speed stuff to get, to that level, because his ball striking is at that level of those guys. I would say his ball striking is even better than probably Rory's is. He was, for I think a couple of years, he was the best ball striker on tour. But Scotty's kind of taken over that now for the last couple of years, I think. So, but anyway, the added benefits are when you bow your wrist, it not only closes the face, but it also shallows out the club at the same time, right? So if I do that, you can see how that closes the face and shallows the club at the same time. And if you're a longtime member of Top Speed Golf, that probably looks familiar to you because that is what Clay referred to as the move. And the move has since been replaced with the 20-minute shallowing fix because it's just a much, much easier way to get the club shallow on, get the face square, get your ball flight in check, and all those things. So before I move any further, I want to make sure we don't have any new questions in here. Oh, we do. Okay. LL says, I'm not seeing today's questions. I'm not sure why that would be, but maybe because you just opened it, may not show all the past questions, but there were no questions today until you just put that comment in there. So that might be why you're not seeing today's question. But if you're not seeing yesterday's questions, that might be because maybe you weren't logged in before that. I'm not really sure exactly. But Mark P says, do you have an easy putting drill to do at the course instead of just putting 3 balls at a hole on the practice green? There's all kinds of great putting drills. If you're looking for putting drills, if you're just looking for a great, some great putting drills, I can go over kind of what I do to kind of prepare for a round. I can go through that with you. I actually just went through that with a student, but if you're looking for putting drills, I would check out the Top Speed Golf putting system. So if you go to the home page, you'll see by clicking the house icon at the top, you'll see a list on that page. If you scroll down, you'll see a list of all the courses that we have, and you can get started in there. But let me go through what I like to do. So putting. What we want to understand with putting is that everything you do has to be about hitting the ball on the right line at the right speed and having the right read. Those are like the big things. I'll throw in mentality in there as well. So understanding, basically you want to have the right mentality with putting. So what that means is how you think through, how you think through putting, right? Having reasonable expectations, understanding when to be aggressive, when not to be, and things like that. Those are all important for putting. So let's talk about kind of what I like to do to kind of get ready for a round. So like I said, everything is about line, speed, and read. Everything. So the first thing that I do, I like to use a putting mirror. That's one of these right here. What this is just something you place on the ground. It's got a little slot that the ball goes into. When you look down at it, you can see where your eyes are over the ball. This is important to know where your eyes are seeing the straight line. So what I do to kind of start out is I'll try to find a dead straight putt, and this gets you right out of the gate. This gets you to where you're reading a green, right? Because part of being good at reading greens is understanding where the straight putt is. So if we can find a dead straight putt that's 8 to 10 feet, right? That's getting out of the gate. We're already working on something, right? So I'm going to try to find a dead straight putt. Once you know, and I'm going to roll a ball a few times just to make sure that it's not breaking a ton. If it breaks like an inch or something like that, it's not that big of a deal. But ideally, it'd be very straight. So once I found that dead straight putt, I'm going to put my putting mirror down, and I'm going to take my putter, and I'm going to move this putting mirror around with the putter face. I'm going to move it around until I feel like this line on this putting mirror is lined up perfectly with it. And I'm going to get over it like I would a putt. Now I want to get to where I feel like this is lined up dead perfect with it. Once I feel like it's lined up perfectly with it, I'm going to get behind it and I'm going to see, okay, is it lined up perfectly with it? If it is, then I'm moving on to the next thing. If it isn't lined up perfectly with it, then I need to find where my eyes need to be over the ball to be able to get it lined up perfectly with it. So what I'm going to do then, if that is the case, so let's say I looked at it and it's lined up wrong, right? It's not lined up right dead at the middle of the hole. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this until it is lined up dead middle of the hole. And then I'm going to put I'm going to get in my address position here with the ball. And I'm just going to try to find where my eyes need to be for that to look like it is lined up perfectly with it. Once I find that, I want to hit some putts, getting comfortable in that position. So this is just something that I do. You know, if it's a competitive round or something like that, you know, if I have a little bit of time to warm up before doing, and if I'm just generally practicing putting, I always do this because it's really, really important, right? Because it touches on one of the most important things in putting, especially short putting, is line, hitting the ball on the right line, right? So if I'm not seeing the right line, if I'm over the ball and I think I'm lined up at the hole and I'm really lined up left and I'm missing everything left, right? Well, you're only going to make putts that either you kind of mishit or you push or you misread or something like that. You're going to miss a lot of putts that you maybe should have made. You know, maybe you put a great stroke on a ball and it's like, man, I thought I had a good read and everything on that. When in reality, you did have a good read. Probably you just weren't lined up very well. So that's why I do this. So generally speaking, your eyes are either going to be right down on top of the ball or a little bit inside of the ball. You know, as much as a few inches. Right? They're going to be somewhere in that area. So I don't know of any like high level putters that have their eyes on this side of the ball. They all have them either right on top of the ball or a little bit inside the ball. I would say the majority of high level putters have the eyes a little bit on inside of the ball, a little bit, you know, be away from the camera here. All right. So that's what I'm going to find first. And then once I have that, I'm just going to roll a few. Get a good feel for it. I know this is lined up at it. I know it's a dead straight putt. So that way I can kind of see, am I hitting the ball on the right line? So I have the ball, I have it lined up. Now am I actually hitting it on the right line? So if I find that I'm pushing it or pulling it or something like that, I'm going to try to make some adjustments, you know, whatever it might be, to get to where I'm seeing the right line. I'm also hitting it on the right line. I also like to do a gate drill. Now you can do a gate drill with the putting mirror. There are holes in it, and what the gate drill is, basically you put tees that are a little bit wider than the putter head. So then when the putter goes through, if you hit the tees, you know you didn't hit it in the middle of the face. So If you hit that right tee, you'll know that you hit it on the heel. If you hit it on the inside tee, you'll know you hit the ball on the toe. So this is important with putting because it's going to change the line and the speed. If I don't hit the ball in the middle of the putter face, I'm not going to transfer the energy to the ball that I think I am, and I'm likely going to leave it short. And if I hit it off the toe, the face may twist open a little bit, and the ball may start a little bit more to the right. If I hit it off the heel, then the ball might go a little left. So hitting it in the middle of the putter face is a good one. And then for start line, what I'll do is about a foot in front of the ball, I'll put 2 tees in a 2-tee gate that's just a little bit wider than the ball. And then I know if I'm hitting those tees that I'm not starting it on the right line. So that's something. If all you need is a putting mirror, put the tees in the ground, and you're going to be good to go. I will recommend a training aid from Y Golf. I believe it's called the Putting Thing. It's the best training aid for what I just talked about. So what it has is it's a plate that you put the ball into, very similar to this. It doesn't have a mirror on it. If it had a mirror on it, it would be my favorite thing because it would combine 2 training aids that I use quite a bit. But anyway, it's a metal plate, and I understand why they don't have a mirror on it because they like to keep it really thin. Because that's a little bit of my complaint about some of these things like this is that your putter's not sitting on the ground; it's sitting elevated because of the thickness of this. Which, I mean, you're just doing a drill, so it's not that big of a deal. But with that thing, it's not as with the putting thing, it's not as big. It's much thinner, so it's not as much elevated. You don't really notice it as much. But it's got adjustable gates for the putter head, and it has adjustable gates for the ball. So you can tighten those up as you get better. If you want to check it out, it is expensive. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a cheap training aid. I think it's around $100. But if you're a serious golfer and you want to get better at putting, it's one of my favorite training aids out there for putting. It's fantastic. So definitely recommend it. And it's called Y Golf Putting Thing if you want to check it out. So I would do some of that, just making sure I'm hitting the ball I'm getting the right line, right? So the next thing I would do is a ladder drill. So the way the ladder drill works is this is all about speed. This has nothing to do with line. It's all about speed. The line just has to be in the general area. You're just focusing on your speed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a tee next to always where I'm going to putt from. So let's say, or you could have the putting mirror as well. But you could just have a tee here, and then you'll have a ball, and I would have it about 15 feet away. Obviously, I can't do that. I don't have that much room here. But what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to putt this ball and get it as close to this ball as I can without going past it. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll show you the next part. So again, this is all about speed. I'm not worried about the line. I know that was a little bit left of the ball. Just put it in the general direction of the ball. It's not a big deal. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the ball that I just putted to. Now I'm going to bring that one back, and I'm going to try to putt this one to the ball that I just putted to. And I'm going to try to see how many putts I can fit in there. Now, the moment that I put the ball past that hole or past that ball, that's when the game is over and you have to start over. So it's a way to help you to learn. You're hitting at a different speed every time, and then you're trying to see how many putts you can fit in that length. And the more you get, the better you're going to be, right? So you can get to where you can really control your speed doing that drill. So highly recommend that one. That's a bread and butter putting drill right there for speed. The next one that I like to do is I like to take 3 balls. I call this just a 3-ball drill. I'll take 3 balls, and I know you asked for drills that aren't just like putting 3 balls on the practice screen. This is a little more nuanced than that. So it's not I'm just putting 3 balls at a hole. It's I'm gonna putt these 3 balls, but one of them I'm gonna try to die in the hole. I'm having a different intention with all of them. So one of them I'm gonna try to die in the hole. One of them I'm gonna try to get to, if it didn't go in, that it would go by the hole like 2 or 3 feet, and then the next one I'd want to go by the hole, 3 or 4 feet to be a little bit firmer. So I'd have one where I die it in, one that's like what we would consider like your general normal kind of perfect speed, and then one that would be firm, like it hits the back of the cup. All right. And I'm going to find any putt that's in the range of 5 to 15 feet. That's kind of the range that you're going to be looking at here. And ideally, it would have some break to it. Right. And you're not always going to be successful, but what this does, it hits on all of those things. Right. I have to read the putt. Right. I have to read it. I have to get generally a good read. I have to hit it on the right line and at the right speed. And I'm varying my line and my speed on each one, because if I hit it firmer, I can take out more of the break. If I'm dying it in, I got to play more break. So that's why I recommend kind of finding one that breaks. I love this one. The only thing, I haven't figured out a way to kind of make it to where you can gamify it, where there's a score involved. I mean, you can structure it to that. I kind of like to just kind of freewheeled it. I choose one hole. I'm going to go to another hole. I'm going to vary it up. The length of the putt, I'm going to vary from when I do it on this hole, then I'm going to do it on a different hole. I'm going to try to find one that's downhill or uphill, one that really breaks, one that doesn't have a lot of break. So that I love that one. If I only have 5 minutes to roll some putts before I go out and play, that's what I do. I'll do that a few times and call it good. I mean, to me, I think that for a 5-minute putting warm up, I don't know that there's anything much better than that, because that's involving all of the things that are really important, right? If you want to do some lag stuff, I don't do much lag putting because I just don't find that it really helps. And that's where I can talk about the mentality a little bit. So I find that a lot of golfers have the wrong mentality with lag putting. The way we want to look at lag putting is you want to look at it almost like chipping. I think a lot of people look at this with chipping. Imagine there's a 3-foot circle around the hole, and you're just trying to get the ball in that 3-foot circle. You're going to make them sometimes, but a lot of people have the mentality of, hey, I'm going to miss 100% of the putts that I leave short. And that is true. But if you have that mentality for a 20-plus foot putt, then you're going to tend to have a lot of 3 putts, because if you say, hey, I'm never ever going to leave it short, then you're going to have, let's say on a 30-foot putt, you have a 6-foot dispersion, right? Meaning that if you took 100 attempts, right, your shortest attempts, the attempts that left the shortest would be at 0 feet, and then there's a 6 feet gap between them, right? So if that's the case, and you have the mindset like, hey, I'm never going to leave it short, then you're going to have putts that you're going to have 6-7 footers coming back on a lot of those. Whereas if you have the mentality that, hey, I'm just going to try to get in a 3-foot circle, and I'm okay if I leave it 3 foot short, even if it's dead in the center of the hole, because you're going to have way less 3 putts. You're also most likely, I don't have any data to back this up, but I think you're going to be most likely, more likely to make more putts when you do that too. Because when you have the mentality that you're never going to leave a putt short, then the putt may be carrying a lot of speed. The ball may be carrying a lot of speed as it's rolling by the hole. And the faster the ball is going, the smaller the hole gets, right? If you put a ball that would go 5 feet by the hole, it probably won't go in. If you hit it dead center, it probably won't go in because it's carrying too much speed. There's something called capture width of the hole. So the capture width gets a lot smaller the faster the ball is rolling. So if you have the idea that I'm gonna die every single lag putt in the hole, it's gonna die in the hole every single time. Well, that's making the hole as big as possible, right? And you're gonna tend to make more of those too. So you're gonna have less 3 putts, and I believe that you're gonna have more 1 putts as well. So definitely recommend. And the reason why I say 20 feet is because once you kind of get to that 20-foot range, most greens, because greens, even Augusta greens, they're not perfect surfaces, right? And hopefully Augusta's not listening to this. And I applied for my Masters lottery. Hopefully they're not listening to this and kicking me off the lottery list. But there's imperfections. So we have machines that will roll the ball the same way every single time. And once you kind of get in that 20-foot range, the ball starts rolling. The end place where that ball ends up being different time after time after time. And that's just because there's just so much happening over that 20 feet that can make the ball, hits a blade of grass, it may go that way, hits a little bug, hits a little rock, a little gust of wind, right? There's all kinds of things that can lead to it changing. So, you can put a perfect roll on a 20-footer and it won't go in, and you can put a crappy roll on a 20-footer and it'll go in. So that's the mentality that we want to have with it. So that's why I don't really practice lag putting, because I just don't see it as a problem for me out on the course. If it's a problem for you out on the course, then really the best way that I think to work on it is to have like a range of putts that you are going to putt that are in a 20 to 50 foot range, right? So you're going to have one putt that you putt from 20 feet, one putt that you putt from 50 feet, and then I would have, I would hit those distances everywhere in between. Maybe every 3 feet you're putting one. So what I would do is I would maybe have some sort of random number generator or something that would give you the speed or the distance of the putt that you need to putt, and then you just find a hole, you step it off, you read it, you putt it, and you mark what you did, and then you push the button again, you get another random number. So let's say the first one was 46 feet. And by the way, when I say step it off, stepping it off would be, typically when I step, it's about 3 feet. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're just stepping the same amount every time, you're going to be in the ballpark. So if I have a 20-foot putt, that's 7 steps minus a foot, right? Because 3 times 7 is 21, right? So if I want to get a 20-foot putt, I'm going to take 7 steps, and then on my last step, I'm going to put the ball where my heel is, because that's minus a foot. If I have if I need a 23-foot putt, right? It's the same thing. If I want a 22-foot putt, right? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that 21, and I'm going to do 1 foot. I'm going to put it there, right? If I have a 21-foot putt, I'm just going to put it on my 7th step. I'm just going to put it on my toe. So it doesn't have to be exact, but that's how you can kind of measure it out. And then I would just keep track. If you have if you take what would be like 11 putts probably, so you have 20, 23, 26, 29, 32, 35, 38, 41, 44, 47, and 50. So you have 11 putts, right? And you're going to put all of those, but you want to make it random. So what you don't want to do is you're not going to be as adaptive if you go 20, then 23, then if you go through it like that. You want it to be pretty random, because that's what's happening on the golf course. You're not incrementally lengthening the speed or the length of every putt on each sequential hole, right? You are, it's random, right? So that's what you kind of want to do there. So, and then count how many total number of putts that it takes you. So I would say the benchmark there would be that you're 2-putting everything, right? That the average is a 2-putt. That's what would be that's what I would have as the benchmark. So for 11, if you got 11 putts, you're putting from 3 feet segments from 20 to 50, right? We want to have 22 putts. Just add them all up, 22 putts. Maybe the first time you go through it, maybe it takes you 30 putts, right? Well, you keep working on it, then you get to where you're at 27 putts. You can keep getting that benchmark down. So that's how I recommend working on it. But like I said, for me, I don't really work on it because I'm looking at the return on investment, right? The return on my mindset is I'm just trying to get that in a 3-foot circle. I don't really struggle with a ton of three putting. Obviously, I three putt every now and then. Everybody does. The best players in the world three putt, sometimes too. So, but at my level, it's not really an issue, and I could work on it some more and maybe cut my three putts down a little bit. But the amount of time that I'm going to put into it, I'm not going to get a lot out of it. So I'm not going to get as much out of the time that I'm going to put into it. So what I would rather work on are putts that are like in the 5 to 15 foot range that are the makeable putts. And I want to get really stinking good at those, because that's the really great putters. That's where they're really good, is they're really good at those shorter, range putts. So basically, getting to where you very rarely miss and inside of 5 feet. That's kind of where I would try to get to. So just a couple putting drills there you can go through, but I definitely recommend checking out the Top Speed Golf putting system. So LL says, can you go through transition from backswing to downswing? I struggle with shifting my body forward. Just took a lesson on this yesterday. Let's just talk about the shifting part of it, right? We'll just talk about that. That's very broad. What you just asked me is super broad, but if we're just talking about the shifting part, I can go through that. So let's talk about where the pressures are in the feet throughout the swing, and that can kind of help you to get a feel for what we're doing. And I'll give you a great drill to kind of help you to get a good sense for this. So in the swing at address, what we're feeling as far as pressure in our feet should be about 50-50. It's okay if you're a little bit this way or a little bit that way. It's totally fine. Don't get hung up on being perfectly 50-50. Me personally, I like to feel very balanced at address because it just, from a balanced position, I think you're going to be able to make the best first, initiation of the swing. Now, if you make a great initiation of the swing with more pressure here, more pressure in your toes, more pressure in your heels, more pressure, whatever it is, that's totally fine. I'm just telling you what I like. There's no right or wrong way, whatever works best for you. So generally speaking, we're going to be about 50-50. Then right when I start the swing, I'm going to start to shift pressure to my trail side. I'm going to start to feel pressure building up in my trail foot. And that's going to continue to increase as I continue my backswing. Now, right around in this area here, about halfway back, that's when I'm actually going to start pushing and shifting my pressure to my lead side. I'm going to start pushing this way. And my pressure is actually going to be maxing out in my trail foot right around in here. Generally, it's going to be around 75-80%. So 50-50, and that's building to 75-80% right here. Then as I continue to the top, I'm actually going to start shifting pressure into my lead side. So now at the top, I'm going to be back to 50-50, but my pressure is moving in that direction. My momentum's moving in that direction, all right? Then as I continue my downswing, my pressure continues to increase in my lead foot, and it's going to continue to increase as I come down in impact for irons. If you're a very powerful player, that pressure might actually be maxing out right here in the downswing. And then because you're putting so much force in the ground, you may see a lot of professional golfers where they kind of come through and their leg kind of goes backwards. That's because they're putting so much force into the ground that it's kind of lifting them off of the ground. And then they're kind of letting their leg kind of go that way to kind of, to take all the torque off of their knee. So that way they can kind of rotate open. That's basically what they're doing there. You see a lot of the long drive, guys do that. If you look at, I don't know if you know who Kyle Berkshire is. He's the guy with the long hair who several years ago, he was the guy doing this. He doesn't do that anymore, but you may recall that fella. So, but anyway, his pressure is he's 90% pressure in the trail foot here. Then he's getting up the top, and then when he gets here, it's probably 90%. And then when he comes through contact, he doesn't really have much pressure in the ground because he's pushing off so much that he kind of becomes weightless to a certain extent. But that pressure is going to increase generally for most golfers as we come down into the ball. And then as we come around to the full finish, we're going to have 90-95% pressure on the lead foot. And essentially the trail foot is just for balance. You should kind of be able to kind of tap your toe and balance on your lead foot when you're in your full finish. Now, what's a great drill to help you to be able to do this is the step drill. So the way that the step drill works is we're going to start with our feet together. Now, we're not hitting a ball doing a step drill. I'll walk you through a progression here to where you can get to where you're hitting a ball. But what I would do, and I'll give you the exact progression that I gave a student, the other day. So first, we're going to do the step drill to get the feel of how the momentum should be moving in the swing, how our body should be moving, the sequencing, and all that good stuff. So to do that, we're going to do the step drill. We're going to start with our feet together. We're going to start the swing by shifting pressure into my right foot. And then as soon as I feel that pressure on my right foot, I'm going to start swinging this club back. As I swing this club back, I'm going to start stepping forward and getting my momentum forward. So I'm going to be stepping toward the target as I'm getting up to the top. Once I land on that lead side, I'm going to push into the ground, start my downswing. My momentum's going to be going in that direction. I'm going to be coming around all the way into a full finish like that. So if I do this in kind of super slow motion, it'll look like this. Right? And I can't really go full speed here because I don't want to hit my walls or anything. But get to where you can do that. Some mistakes that I see with this that I want to mention, just because I just see a lot of people who try to do this drill tend to make these mistakes. So the first thing is what I call dipping the toes in the water. So this is where we don't really get our momentum moving forward. We kind of stay on our back foot and we just stick our leg out like this. So that might look something like this, right? Where I'm just sticking my toes in the water. I can just bring my leg back. I'm really balanced on this leg. My momentum's not going forward. So when your foot goes forward, your body has to go forward too. Your hips have to go forward. So we can't dip the toes in the water. That's just going to enable you to maybe do what you're already doing. The next thing that I see is just people doing the step or the timing of the step and throwing the club back are all off. So as soon as this club starts going back, I want you to feel like you're starting to lift your foot and go forward, right? So an example of doing it poorly would be this. Right, where I waited till I got to the top and then I stepped. Really, it needs to be happening as the club is going back. So I like to feel like basically as soon as that club starts going back, I shift to my trail side, that club starts going back, then I start stepping forward. Technically, that is a little bit earlier than what you would want in the swing, but that's what a lot of people need. It's not going to hurt you to do a little bit earlier in this drill. As long as you are shifting your weight to your trail side to start, you're good. Now, what we don't want to do is just step forward, shift, get the club going, and then step forward right away. So those are really kind of the two major things. The last thing I would say is where people just step way too far. They get to where they're way out here. So what you would do to negate that would be just take your normal stance and then put like a T on the outside of your foot, and then bring your foot back. And then when you take your step, just make sure you don't step past that. Now, it's okay if you're stepping a little bit wider. It's totally fine. But if we're going like that, where we're really, it's going to be hard to kind of rotate through. Everything's going to be a little bit off. So we don't want to step too far when we're doing it. All right. So I would say once you get like 10 in a row, 5 to 10 in a row, where you've got the step drill, the sequencing, everything is great. Here's what I would recommend doing next. If you are on a mat, this is what I would do. If you're on real grass, then take some foot powder spray. This stuff right here, Dr. Scholl's Odor X. You can get this at about any pharmacy. It's $5 or $6. I think I got this at Walmart a few months ago. But if you imagine the foot powder spray is going to be what this tape is. So this is just masking tape. This is the tape that I recommend to work with on mats or painter's tape. Either one's fine. It's a low stick and not a really durable tape. And that's what we want for this. I don't recommend using like duct tape because it's the opposite, right? Duct tape's durable and it's very sticky. That's the opposite of what we want for this. So what you'll do is you'll take the tape Just put it on the mat there. And if you're using foot power spray on turf, you just spray a line like that, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to get in your setup here with your normal stance, and I want you to replicate those same feelings. You're not hitting the ball yet, but I want you to replicate those same feelings that you just had, where you shift to your right. As you're shifting to your right, you're going to shift to your left, and then we start the downswing with more pressure in the lead foot. We come all the way around to a full finish. And what you're going to do, your goal is to come down and hit the turf in front of this tape and not disturb the tape. All right. So you're going to start with the club, basically the sole of the club, right on top of the tape. You're going to do the same thing. If you got the foot power spray, and what you're going to do, you're going to shift to your right and shift to your left, and then get that contact to be in front. Now watch what happens if I come down and I hit this tape. I'm going to be able to see. I can see that it has been hit. Now, usually what's going to happen is that thing's going to come off. There we go. That's going to come off, and it's going to stick to the club like that. But basically what you'd want to be able to do is be able to look down and see that tape immaculate, untouched. So that's the first part. You got to get 10 in a row doing that. Once you can get 10 in a row doing that, then you add the golf ball, put a new piece of tape down, which we'll do here in a second. Let's put a new piece of tape down. New piece of tape. And what I like about the tape as well is that if you hit that a few times, you're not going to want to hit it again, because it's a pain in the butt to have to take that out and put it on every single time. I kind of like that it's a pain in the butt, because you're going to focus a little bit more, right? So when you put this ball here, what a lot of people do is they put the ball like this, where the ball's like on the line. The divot is not happening in front of the ball, not typically. Typically, the divot is happening either right where the ball is. Sometimes it can be slightly in front, or it can even be a little bit before the ball. So where I would put the tape, or put the ball, is I would put it a ball width in front of the tape. So about like that. That's about a ball width in front of the tape. And if you can come down, leave that tape undisturbed, hit the ball and hit the turf, that is going to translate to real turf out there. I've actually done some research. I think it was Ping that did the research, where they found like where pros are hitting the ground in relationship to the ball, and they found that they actually tend to hit the ground a little bit before the ball. And you might be thinking, well, wouldn't they be chunking it all the time? Well, if you hit a little bit of the ground, generally it's not going to be a problem, because why a chunk is bad is because the ground creates resistance for the club, and you're not going to transfer that energy to the ball. Well, if you only hit a little bit behind the ball, you just hit a little bit of the ground, that little bit of ground that you're hitting really isn't going to cause much resistance, right? So you're still going to be able to hit it pretty solid when you do that. Think about this. Whenever you've watched like a professional golfer, if you watch them like warm up, typically they create those lines of divots. Well, if they really hit ball first and then took a divot in front of the ball every single time, then what would happen is they would take that initial divot, they'd have the ground there that's perfect. They would hit that first ball, they would take that initial divot, and then they would just they would just put the ball at the back of that divot, and then they would never, it would just be the same every single time. But they create the strip because they typically take a little bit of the ground every single time. So that way they have to keep kind of walking it back. And that's why they end up with those strips. So, ideally you would be kind of very close to ball first contact, ball and turf contact roughly at the same time, but it's okay if we're hitting slightly behind it. So the divot board you can also use if you got a divot board. And let me kind of show you. So if you're on a divot board, if you're not familiar with what this is a great training tool. If you struggle with chunks and things or ground contact, anything like this, this is the best tool out there. This is what you need. If you're interested in getting one, you can go to the resources tab on the website. You can pick one up there. You can find the link to it there. There's also a video where Clay kind of goes through and puts his rating on this training aid. But anyway, the the contact point can be anywhere, I would say, up to an inch behind and up to a half inch after. So I would say if your divot is starting anywhere kind of in these areas, so you're hitting the ball that way, up to an inch behind, and then about a half inch in front of the circle, right? So if your club comes down and makes first contact anywhere in this range right here, typically it's going to be very solid, right? So if your divot looks like I'd say if your divot kind of looks like that, I'm hitting the ball that way, if it looks like that, that's going to be fine. It might be a hair thin, but it's still going to be solid. If my divot is like that, starting perfectly right in the middle of the circle, that's totally good too, right? So if it's like that, and if it's like this, where it's a little bit behind the circle, right, starting right there and going that way, that's totally fine too. That's going to lead to good strikes. Now, if we get it back there, that's going to tend to be a little too chunky. You're going to tend to hit too much of the ground there, right? So just wanted to go through that, but hopefully that helps. LL, hope you understand a little bit. And just as you mentioned that you had a lesson on this yesterday, I highly recommend that you ask questions if you don't understand something. Because as a teacher, as an instructor, we don't always know if you're fully getting it or not. So if you don't quite understand exactly what we're talking about, you gotta ask, because we may not really know, and then you're kind of scouring the internet to try to find the answer, and sometimes the answers that you get on the internet are not going to be good. Now, I believe that the answer that I just gave you is good, but I can't vouch for everything else that you may see. Now, my answer is based on data that has been taken from many tour players. They actually have force plates that there's several companies now that do it. But Swing Catalyst is a company, Body Track, there's lots of them. But basically, it's a mat that you stand on that measures the pressure that you're putting into the ground with your feet. And they measured hundreds of tour players. And what I just mentioned there is basically what the average of what they're seeing. Typically, they're 50-50 at address. They shift to their right, to the trail side right away. They start building pressure. As they get about halfway up, that pressure starts to move to the lead side. And then it's about 50-50 at the top. And again, this is an average. So that means that there might be some players that are more forward at the top and some that are less. But generally, it's going to be about 50-50. But the momentum is always going in that direction. I don't think that there are any players that shift to the right and have most of their weight on their trail side at the top, and then when they start their downswing, they shift to their left. But that is something that I see a lot of recreational golfers do. And if you do that, then I highly recommend the step drill that I just talked about. So LL says, if you have time, my other question pertains to controlling wedge distances. Is backswing length the best method? Focus on shots about 80 yards or less. Yeah, so I think that's the best method kind of starting out. The best players in the world, they can just feel it. They just know, most of them anyway, I believe. They just know what it feels like. And that's kind of where I'm at, is I just kind of know what a 80-yard shot feels like. I know what a 75-yard shot feels like. It's feel that is developed through skill type training type stuff. So here's where I would start out with. I would start out using the clock system, right? And in the Top Speed Golf wedge system, Clay goes over this clock system. And if you're not familiar, basically what it means is we're going to think of your lead arm as an arm on the clock. And if I bring it right here, that's a 7:30, right? So if I'm here and then I come through, that's a 7:30 swing. If I'm here and I go through, that's a 9 o'clock swing. If I'm here and I go through, that's a 10:30 swing, right? So what I would do is I would take your wedges, and for each of your wedges, whatever you have, I would find out how far all of those shots go with those swing lengths. And write them down. Write down what it is, so that way you have a general idea. Then what I would do is I would take the club and I would choke it up 1 inch and then do the same thing. Because when you choke up on the club, you're going to take a little bit off, right? And the reason is that a shorter lever arm doesn't go, it's not going to create as much speed, right? There's a reason why you swing your driver faster than you do your wedges, because it's a much longer club. If you think about a fan, the tips of the fan blades are moving much faster than the inner portions of the fan blades. So it's the same thing in the golf swing or with a club. If I choke up on this club, it's going to take a little bit off. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to see how far they all go. And then I'm going to go down to 2 inches. Then I'll go down to the middle. And I'm going to see with all of those how far they go. And I'm going to be able to cover a lot of ground with that. Just write it down. You're going to be able to see. You're going to be able to cover. Okay, well, I got a 60-yard shot. That's going to be a 9 o'clock, 1 inch choke up, 56 degree, right? And you're going to know, you just make that swing and it's going to go roughly that distance. So that's what I would do kind of starting out. The key to this as well is to kind of maintain a similar rhythm and tempo with every single swing. So what I mean by that is your 7:30 swing can't be like that, and then your 9 o'clock swing is that. It can't be, as exaggeration, but it can't be. It's got to be the same rhythm, very similar rhythm and tempo to all of them, because otherwise the spacing and gapping is going to be way off. So that's what I would do to kind of start out. And then to kind of get the feel, to develop the feel, you are going to practice, hitting different distances and just getting a feel for it. So one way you can do it would be, very inexpensive way to do it. You probably have a deck of cards at home. Grab a deck of cards, take out all the face cards, draw a card. If it's a 5, you're going to hit it 50 yards. And what you can also do is you can have like the black cards be like the number plus 0, and then the red cards could be the number with a 5. So if a black 5 would be 50, a red 5 would be 55. Right? And you just draw the cards. That way you're getting random distances and you're developing the feel. And then you hit the shot, you see how far it goes, and you go from there. Says, unfortunately, we use limited distance range balls, so that messes with your distance. Try to go out by myself to practice on the course. It's not going to, they can make a little bit of a difference. It's more on the longer shots where those make the biggest difference. It will make a little bit of a difference on those, but you just got to do what you got to do. I mean, it is what it is. You just have to understand, like, okay, well, that went 50 yards. It probably would have went actually 55 yards maybe, or something like that. So you're still developing a feel. You still want to do that. It's not, I wouldn't use that as a deterrent not to work on it. But you just you got to work with what you got to work with. But it can really help you to develop a good feel for it. All righty. We'll go ahead and wrap it up right there. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully, everybody has a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time.